Mattie Merrywinkle, Chapter 3, The Butcher's Boy. A puncture! And she was still only a third of the way round the estate. Mattie Merrywinkle stared in disbelief at the flat tyre on her usually trusty bicycle. Festering fish cakes! Everything all right, love? A red-faced man in a grey marl tracksuit and bright orange trainers was stacking up his recycling boxes on the curb outside the next house. He was dressed for jogging, but Mattie guessed from the shape of him that he didn't do an awful lot of that. No, I've got a puncture, and this lot's still to deliver. She gestured towards the half-full basket on the front of her bicycle. The man hitched his jogging bottoms up and wiped the perspiration from his forehead with the back of his hand. Do you want me to have a look at it for you? Oh, yes, but you shouldn't really come close. Yeah, I know, but I think this is an emergency, don't you? Look, if you just sit yourself on that garden wall there, I'll be able to suss it out without breaking any rules. Mattie backed away from her bicycle, and the man approached slowly. The closer he came, the more familiar he looked. Don't I know you? She asked. I was just thinking the same about you. Did you used to go to Chorley Road Juniors by any chance? I did. And were you in Mr. Jackson's class? I was. Oh, Wacko Jacko we used to call him. He was a bit too handy with the cane, if I remember rightly. I used to get it all the time for answering back, being cheeky. I used to get it all the time for not answering back when he asked questions. I was always rubbish at all that school stuff. Hang on a minute. It's Matilda Merrywinkle, isn't it? Didn't you used to sit next to me and let me copy your spelling sometimes? Gristlechops? Charlie Gristlechops? Well, actually it's Esselthrop, Charlie Esselthrop. But everybody used to call you Gristlechops. I know, on account of me dad owning a butcher's shop. I used to hate it when I were a lad, but it's quite nice to hear it again now. Right, let's have a look at this bike. Charlie bent over a bicycle and ran an appraising eye over the rear tyre. Mattie sat on the garden wall and ran an appraising eye over his rear. Then her eyes moved upwards to his broad shoulders and then onto his hair, grey now, like hers, but still thick and wavy and long. It was pulled back into a man bun, a style that would normally earn Mattie's disapproval, but which, on Charlie, for some unknown reason, she found distinctly discombobulating. His large, capable hands were feeling their way expertly round the circumference of her tyre. Mattie gave herself an involuntary hug. Ah, there's the blighter. You've picked up a tack. I can easily fix it if you don't mind waiting there a minute. She beamed a merry twinkle smile to let him know that she didn't mind at all, and he disappeared down his garden path. While she waited, she turned her face up to catch the late spring sunshine and swung her legs contentedly, revelling in the novel experience of being looked after. Charlie Gristlechops, eh? Who'd have thought it? It was true what he'd said. She had let him look at her spelling sometimes, and in return he'd shared the contents of his consistently over-generous lunchbox on those occasions when Mattie's mum had forgotten to make one up. In no time at all, he was back, a puncture kit in one hand and a Tupperware box in the other. He set the open box down on the wall next to her. Help yourself while you're waiting. Ooh, I don't know if I should, Charlie. Oh, don't worry. I tipped a brand new packet of fig rolls in there and haven't touched any of them. You look half starved, Matilda, but then you always did, as I remember. Ooh, I'm a bit hungry. I didn't have time for much breakfast this morning. Maybe just the one. 5 fig rolls later, the bicycle was ready to go. Charlie stepped back and regarded it affectionately. I used to have one just like this to help me dad out with meat deliveries. Regular little butcher's boy I was in them days. Takes me back just looking at it." He turned his affectionate gaze onto Mattie, and suddenly she could see beyond the ill-fitting tracksuit and the ridiculous orange trainers to the chubby little boy with the nut-brown eyes and the big heart, the one she used to have a schoolgirl crush on many years ago. He jerked his head in the direction of his neighbour's house. "How often do you drop pills off for old Jim?" "Oh, once a week, every Thursday." "I'll maybe look out for you next week." "I'd like that." "Charlie!" A shrill, disembodied voice rang out from the direction of his house. He didn't reply, but the screeching continued regardless. "What are you mucking about at? I could have carried them boxes all the way to the tip in the time it's taken you just to put them by the gate. This grass won't cut itself, you know. Get a flipping move on, will you?" There followed the sound of a door being slammed. Charlie shrugged his shoulders, spread out his palms in mock surrender. The Mrs. Shirley Scrimshike was. She was in our class too. Do you remember her? Mattie jumped down from the wall and brushed the biscuit crumbs from her front. "Aye, I do that. Well, I'd best be off then." Any romantic notion she may have had may have been nurturing, vanished in a puff of smoke as she clambered onto a bicycle. "Thanks for fixing me tired, Charlie, and for the biscuits. See ya." Shirley Scrimshike. Just the mention of the name took Mattie straight back to cowering in a corner with the shadow of the playground bully looming over her. She had no desire to meet her in person. "By heck, our a close shave," she muttered, and pedalled away as fast as her little chicken legs would carry her.